on, everyone? This is Tanner Ingram with FlyRide RC. I've recently been given the opportunity from RadioMaster to review their 2 new flight controllers. Pre-release, these will be out in the very near future, and I think a lot of you who are running Rotor Flight are going to like the new features they've added to these 2 units. They've been listening to the pilots, they've been listening to the request on Discord, Facebook, Heli Freak, wherever it is. They have listened to us and added a couple of the features. We've said, hey, why don't we have this? We should have this. This is something that we're all using, something we need, and I think RadioMaster has done a good job at that. So, with that being said, I'll jump right into the review. These are the 2 new flight controllers coming out from RadioMaster. The Nexus X on the left-hand side and the Nexus XR on the right-hand side. They look very similar and they share a lot of similar traits. The main difference in the 2 of them is the XR has the ELRS module built in. That's why it's just a little bit thicker if you look at them on the side. The X is very similar to the previous Nexus, where you're going to need an external receiver such as the RP3H if you're running ELRS. In my opinion, I think the Nexus X is for people who aren't running ELRS. If you're running ELRS, I'd get the XR, so it's built in, it's done. You don't have to buy 2 different things. You don't have to flash the external module, it's already built in. You don't have to deal with wiring, finding a spot to mount it. The X is most likely for people running FrSky, DSM, Futaba, whatever it may be. Or if you don't want to rewire your helicopter, you're hot swapping in the X and you want to leave the RP3 mounted where it is, plug it right in the side. Pretty much the same concept as the previous Nexus. The big feature, in my opinion, that I think a lot of people are going to like, and this is the same on both of these units, is the ports coming in on the left-hand side for the servos. You're going to have the same ports as the previous Nexus. I'm trying to get my camera to focus here. There we go. Same ports as the previous Nexus for 3 cyclic at the top, the tail, the ESC, RPM. We're going to skip the next 2 and then S-Bus at the bottom. We had all 7 of those on the previous Nexus. The 2 new ports are TLM and AUX. TLM is exactly how it sounds. It's for telemetry. At this time, I'm not sure if we can play with the CLI and use that as an output as well, kind of like an additional auxiliary port, but it can definitely take telemetry in. If you just want to run the servo port coming out of the ESC, it will read telemetry similar to the UART ports on the previous Nexus. The second port being the auxiliary port. The auxiliary is going to be able to accept, as I'd imagine, this isn't stated in the documentation I've read so far, it should be able to accept a signal or send a signal, I'd imagine, to an external, let's say, a glow igniter or turning off a backup guard. Maybe you want to drop a rocket out of the bottom of your helicopter to move a servo. Usually an auxiliary port, that is what it entails. And either way, if you don't want to use either of these features, telemetry or auxiliary, you can power through both of these ports. So for nitro setups, or if you're running backup guards and capacitors like myself, it really gives you a little bit better wiring. You don't have to deal with wire harnesses or splicing wires together. It gives you a lot more flexibility with the I/O available on the front of the controller. And like I said, it's the same on the Nexus X, exact same I/O. They also have the USB-C port on both of them, which is standard these days, very much expected. On both sides you have a UART B and C. The following side you have the UART A, as well as external voltage. And this is something I'm not exactly sure what us heli pilots are going to use it for, but it's rated from 3.6 volts to 70 volts, which is ridiculous. I'm not exactly sure how we'll use that. Maybe if you don't have telemetry, there's a way to monitor your battery from there. Personally, I don't know, but the spec itself up to 70 volts impressed me. Another detail that stood out to me was the 256 megabytes of onboard memory. That is 2 times the previous memory of the Nexus. I'll zoom out for us here. 2 times the memory of the previous Nexus, so more onboard logging for black box logs, anything else you need to log. I guess that's really all we do with this is the black box log. So double the memory for the black box logs. It also states, and I quote, an improved BEC, stable, reliable power delivery to electronics for enhanced performance. I did open both of these up to see if I saw anything that seemed beefier or stood out to me. I am not an electrical engineer, so I am not entirely sure, but I'll follow up with Keith Williams or other people who couldn't know this kind of thing to see what they think about that. Thought that was an interesting stat on the new specs for these flight controllers. In terms of things that are similar to the previous Nexus, they both run the STM32F722 MCU, same as the previous Nexus. They also have the ICM 42688P IMU. Both of those MCUs and IMUs I'm a big fan of. I chase those on other flight controllers. I think they did it right keeping it the same on these two units. One thing worth noting is if you are running the previous Nexus and want to drop one of these in, you want to swap it out, you've already set it up on Rotor Flight on the Nexus, you can take a dump all and drop it right in either of these units and it's going to work immediately. There's no reprogramming, no remapping anything. It's going to work exactly as it stated before. They also have new colors. I think the colors look a little bit deeper, a little bit more vibrant and not as washed out as the previous colors. They have red, gold, purple, and blue outside of the two colors you're seeing on the screen right now. I'm a big fan of the colors they did there. I thought they looked very nice. In terms of weight of these units, and that was something that's always big, not a huge deal with helicopters, you know, a gram or two here and there, but you never know. There's a huge change in the flight controller that could be significant to setups. Both of these setups are within 3 to 4 grams of the previous Nexus setup with the Nexus and the RP3. 3 to 4 grams heavier, I should say, which in my opinion is negligible to have 2 extra ports on your flight controller. The Nexus X is the 20.6 grams, the Nexus XR is 24.1 grams, where in comparison the Nexus, original Nexus, is 16.8 grams plus 5.1 grams of an RP3H. So both those numbers, again, within 3 to 4 grams of the original setup. Overall, I think they feel pretty solid. I'm a fan of what RadioMaster did here. They've listened to the pilots, they've given us what we wanted, and I'm very excited to throw this in a model and get it going. I will follow up on how they fly or any other reviews, but in my humble opinion, I think that they're going to fly the exact same. They simply gave us more I/O, the ELRS is built in, and just kind of a better built flight controller hardware-wise for us to use with Rotor Flight. Thank you very much to RadioMaster for letting me review these, and I hope you all enjoy these. Let me know in the comments what you think of these.